It's almost like being in the third grade. Like, you have kids, you go in the third grade. You might know physics, but you can't teach the third graders physics. You have to get at the level of what they're willing to receive. So when we're out in the world, everyone's talking about how, oh, Santa Claus this, Santa Claus being all the illusions of the world, and we just know that that's not the case. And yeah.
When I was talking to that lady today, this morning,
Yeah.
in North Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
she said, Dan, all you can do is just throw it out there.
Right.
That's what she said. And I said, that's what we've been talking about. She goes, it doesn't mean they're going to hear you.
Right. They didn't hear Jesus.
Yeah, but isn't that something I'm talking to this person in North Carolina, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she goes through the same things that we've been through.
Right. That's.
I mean, the same exact thing.
Yep. And she's retiring.
Yeah. But she's known this for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And
before you, like, she was like.
I don't know before me. I mean, I started learning this stuff when I was like 27 years old.
Right.
I should ask her. Next time I talk to her, I'll ask her. I don't know when she got this. I should have done this. I should have said, so how did you get this? I mean, when's the first time you heard this?
Right.
That it went, huh?
Right.
Whoa. Because I know
yeah.
Darlene and I, we were talking about that yesterday. And I was talking about, I'm driving home
After church. Oh, from work, right, okay.
and I'm looking for a sports channel.
Yeah.
Because I got an hour drive home from work.
Yeah.
I work in the Denver Tech Center. And I remember turning the channels, and I heard this guy talking about God. Come to find out, is this guy named Bob George, who I'd never heard of. And what caught my brain was he had people were calling in. And I remember him saying, hey, you're justified, you're reconciled, you're sanctified, and you're perfected. And I was like, whoa. I was like, whoa. And then he said, it doesn't matter how you see yourself. It doesn't matter how you see yourself. The only thing that matters is how God sees you. And he told you this is what he did for you. And all he wants you to do is believe that. That's all he wants you to do. Whether you see that or you don't.
Right. That's how God sees you. Everybody.
Yeah, that's what
and in our judgment of human things,
yeah.
Well, this person did some really, really bad things.
Man, that hit me like a ton of bricks, man. I mean, it I about drove off the road. And then I started just listening to that. It just started sinking in. And then from that, I started talking to God.
Right.
Went home and got in the room and shut the lights off, laid down on the floor, and that's when it started.
Wow.
But Darlene told me it was when her husband came to her and said, hey, we're going to go over to this buddy's house, and there's this guy that's there, and he's been talking about God, and I want to go over to this guy's house, and because he invited us over. And Darlene said, I didn't want to go.
Right. God.
I remember that. I didn't want to go.
Right.
And this guy's going to tell me the same thing I've always heard. I get over there, and she says, I'll never forget, we left there, and Bob and I get in the truck, and Bob couldn't even start the truck. We just sat there.
Yeah.
And I looked at Bob, I go, what in the world just happened? Bob says, I don't know, but it's true.
Right.
I know that.
Right.
Whatever it is, whatever that was, I don't even fully understand.
But it's true.
But it's true. And man, it just hit us. And here we are, years later. I mean, Darlene and I mean, this gotta be 20 years ago.
Right.
Here we are talking yesterday about this. and all the things that Darlene's learned
Right.
out there by herself, man. Her husband's passed away.
Right.
Out there by herself. She's telling me, I can't sit in church anymore.
Yeah.
I can't sit and listen to it.
Right. And like we just said, like it's like sitting in a math class where someone's telling you 2 + 2 = 5,
Yeah.
and you're just like, what? And
You're
everyone's
sitting
believing
in
it,
what-
and everyone's like,
I'll tell you
yes.
what happens. I'll tell you what happens to you. You sit there and you look around at all the people saying amen, nodding their head, saying amen.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, it hurts.
Right.
It's just sad.
It's the amen to the 2 + 2
It-
= 5. Right?
Yeah,
Amen.
there's amen,
Amen.
2 + 2 = 5.
Right, right. And you're missing the
They're-
whole gift.
And buddy, they are soaking it up. And
And this isn't a judgment on how them being bad or not. That's just the message is so. The message has been trained generation after generation.
what else has ever been out there?
Right. That's the message that's been taught. It reminds me of, have you ever heard the story of, there's a woman who was watching her mother cook, and she took the roast, and she chopped off a big chunk of one side, and chopped off a big chunk of the other side. She's like, Mom, why do we do that? She's like, well, that's how my mom taught me. She
Yeah.
called her mom, hey Mom, why do we do that? Well, that's how my mom taught me.
Yeah.
And the mom was like almost 100 years old, the great grandma, and the great grandma's like, oh, okay, well the reason we do that is because we didn't have a pan big enough,
Right.
and we had to chop each side off to make it fit in the pan.
Right.
But that's how it was taught generation after generation as just being the thing to do. And that's how it's been. And that's one example of many of what's happening in the world is only because that's how it was taught.
You know what? It's the story that was told.
Yep.
It was the story that was told.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I don't know what to tell you. It's you tell people anything different,
Well,
and they think you're full of crap. They think
Well,
you
here's-
are out of your mind.
well, here's some historical facts. The New Testament. The New Testament.
Get to, man. I gotta go buy some more tea, man.
The New Testament wasn't released until 1260 A.D.
Yeah.
1,260 years after Jesus came, they released the New Testament. And the question is, I wonder if they modified things just a little bit to fit the program. So there's always that question. If it didn't come out for that much longer after the circumstances.
Yeah, you know what? It doesn't matter.
Right.
What I'm saying is we got what God gave us.
Correct.
We got what God left us with. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't care if man got a hold of it and started messing with it, and they probably did.
Right.
Listen,
But it is what it.
listen.
Uh-huh.
Martin Luther tried to talk to the Catholic Church years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ever read The Bondage of the Will, I mean, the big issue between the Catholic Church and Martin Luther was Martin Luther didn't believe in free will.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can't find a Lutheran. If you went to the Lutheran church and said, you know, Martin Luther didn't believe in free will,
Heresy.
they tell you you're crazy. I talked to this one Lutheran buddy of mine one time. I said, you know, Martin Luther didn't believe in free will. Oh, yeah, he did. Don't you try to tell me he didn't. I mean, he was having a fit.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
You can't tell people. You can't. They're not going for it, buddy.
Right.
Okay? So, I mean, that was blasphemy
Yeah.
to that guy.
Yeah.
That Martin Luther.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the issue with Martin Luther. Martin Luther, the Catholic Church had to hold on to sin.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They had, buddy, they're not letting that frickin' story go away.
Mm-hmm.
And Martin Luther didn't believe in that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
you can't tell them that.
Right.
So what we're going to do is we're going to, like last week, we started out talking about some things.
Right.
Right? And so we're going to just kind of connect some things and see if people can hear or not. And we're just throwing it out there.
Right.
But it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing. And we
Because
talked
it
about
goes
the
against-
messenger last week, right?
Right. Yeah.
Well, that hurts people's feelings.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say this again. Listen, the pastor, rabbi, priest, bishop, prophet, guru, Eamon, they're the nicest guys on planet Earth.
Doing great.
I'm sorry, you know.
Right. This isn't saying they're bad. It's just the
They're
message.
nice guys.
Right.
The problem is they don't understand that they're teaching dualism.
Right.
They're teaching dualism, and they're teaching the message
That Jesus came.
from what Adam and Eve ate from.
Right.
The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so what they teach is this is right and that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And they teach that you are an independent self with your own will and own power.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's dualism.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't care if people can hear that or they can't hear that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't change the fact that if I walk into a church building and sit down in their church, I'm going to hear dualism.
Dualism. Right and wrong. Good and
And I'm
bad.
going to hear this is right and that's wrong.
And God and
so-
the devil. The devil's powerful.
And God does this, the good things, the devil does the bad things, and I'm over here doing my own thing. Now that's just, what do they talk about? Well, we got to talk about our part in this.
Right.
Well, Jesus did this, but our part is this. Well, it's dualism. And I don't care if we don't want to connect that.
Right.
Oh, gee, I don't want to connect that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't change the fact that that's the old covenant. So what we're doing here is we're saying grace,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and then we're mixing in law,
Right.
right living.
Yep.
So, man, that's just a hard thing. That's a hard thing.
And you've known this
So-
for so long, it rolls off your tongue, but there's so much depth to what you just said. Teaching grace, yet here's the law. Like that's a day's worth of conversation for people that don't. They hear the grace plus law,
Yeah.
and that's mixing the old wine with the new wine, and that's the 2 + 2 = 5, and that's what they've been taught. So it's
I could talk about this for days, but
thank you.
so last week, we talked about Adam and Eve, and who were they listening to? Who were they talking to? Well, they were talking to the serpent, right? Well, they didn't know what the serpent represented.
Because that was prior to knowing.
Remember when I asked you the question, who's the most trustworthy? You said
Yes.
God. Well,
Right.
yeah, that makes sense
Right.
in our knowledge of right and wrong today,
Right.
right? But Adam and Eve didn't have that knowledge of right and wrong.
Prior to Eden, right?
So,
right.
so if you say, well, if you get the serpent and God in the picture of the garden, say
God
who's
said-
the most trustworthy? Adam and Eve would just stand there going,
Right. And God had told him, eat everything but that, don't eat that. And the
"Wow,
serpent told him,
trustworthy,"
and the serpent said, eat this and you'll be like God.
So, I've had pastors, teachers tell me, well, Dan, the serpent was just tempting. Holy crap.
What's temptation?
What's temptation?
Before. Right.
See, they didn't.
Right.
So, anyway, we read this book through our knowledge of right and wrong. So we read Genesis.
Mhm.
We read Genesis through our right and wrong, good versus evil belief system.
The lenses, right? How
Yeah,
we see
and I that's why when I talked to you the other day, and I was talking to this guy in Colorado, and he said, well, Dan, these
You're making some big assumptions.
they're making some big assumptions, and so it's just that we just can't go there.
Mm-hmm.
So, listen, Adam and Eve was talking to the messenger that they were talking to was the serpent. And what did he say? We said, well, you can be like God. Well,
Which was a lie.
I'm going to explain that. What he really said, if you go into Genesis 3, it says, you will be as gods, knowing good and evil. Okay, well, let's just talk about that. What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
You can be as gods.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are we taught? Well, we're taught that we are a separate self, an independent self with our own will and own power.
Mm-hmm.
So we can be as gods,
Mm-hmm.
believing that we're making it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And with our own will and our own power.
When the reality that it was all created.
Yeah. As soon as man ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they went from the nature of God to an independent self, believing in their own will and their own power. So they now can be as gods. That's why this free will belief system is a lie. So the interesting thing about it is, I don't think anybody talks about this, but, before God walked them out of the garden, what did he do? Well, he clothed them with the coat of righteousness. The coat of righteousness. He said, hey, you're okay with me.
Which from a human, like, if I'm thinking about that in our world right now, wait a minute, so I'm kicked out of here, but you're telling me I'm all right. That's kind of, help me understand, like, wait a minute.
Well, they couldn't be there anymore,
Right.
and so he sent them out into another realm.
But with that right, you're good,
Right.
you're good with me.
Right, so what's this realm?
Yeah.
What's the difference? We ought to know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
But, so listen.
Well, let me understand this. So with what you just explained, this is the world. The dualism is the world operating system.
Yeah.
And so we're not here to, like, we're not saying we're going to flip the world on its head and change the way the operating system is. All we're saying is understand the operating system that we're playing in.
The operating system right here.
Right. So am I sharing that correctly? Yeah. So we're not saying, like, look, this is all wrong.
Listen, we're operating in a realm, and that belief system of this realm, the foundation of that belief system is this is right and that's wrong.
Yep. So we're not here saying that's wrong and we need to make it right.
Yeah, so man is operating off their knowledge of right and wrong.
And
okay, my gosh, if we don't see that, if we can't
make that assumption,
if we can't make that assumption, if we can't see that, well, let's just go home.
The right and wrong, and that's what creates us versus them.
Yeah.
Wars,
and that's the byproduct of that knowledge of right and wrong is all the things that you see out here in the world. That's the byproduct of that belief system. That byproduct of that belief system, what does it do? Well, it creates conflict because, holy crap, my right's wrong and your right's wrong. My right's right and your right's wrong. So that's the realm we're walking in. Okay? And so I'm going to get back to the messenger. Okay? You can be as gods knowing right and wrong. Well, I don't know why we can't understand that that's the belief system that's supposed to pass away. We think when it says that old things are supposed to pass away, behold, all things are new, we think it's, well, we used to
do bad things, now we're going to do
we used to behave this way, and now we don't.
But we try to do the good.
I mean, this is what you get when you're sitting in the building. When you're sitting in the building, the interpretation you get is all behavior.
And that's what hurt me. Like when I was in the Marine Corps and in boot camp, I accepted Jesus, and from there, I thought I was going to be acting and doing things, and it would be no more bad stuff. Yet I was still doing bad stuff, and every time I went there, I'm like, man, I'm still here and I'm bad. And I accepted Jesus, but I'm still bad, which makes me bad. Everyone else must be doing good, but I'm not. What's wrong with me?
Yeah, well, that's what we're taught. We're taught this is all about our behavior. Okay, so we're believing in a God of reward and punishment, based on how we're behaving. Okay, and so, I mean, it's kind of like, so anyway, that's what we're taught. Okay, and that came from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Okay, so the byproduct, I mean, religion was formed at the foot of that tree.
Yep.
Okay, the byproduct of that belief system is religion.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you got people that say, well, you know, I don't know, I don't believe in a religion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I go to a fellowship church, or I go to a non-denominational church, or I go to a community church, you know.
Well, and with that religion,
it doesn't change the message.
Mm-hmm.
It's not changing the message. The message isn't changing.
Mm-hmm. Well, the message in the beginning was the burning bush, right? The 10 Commandments came from the burning bush, which, you know...
Moses went up on the hill and he came back down with a tablet.
Right.
Okay? Because, you know, they just wanted to be told how to act.
Here's how to be. Do this, don't do this.
Hey, give us the rules.
Right.
Give us the rules and we'll do it. That's man.
And then Jesus came and shattered the rules. That's the part that leads to the new, like, because the old covenant was the rules, right?
Right. So all I'm saying is, people say, well, Dan, you get all caught up about these trees in the garden. What's the big deal?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing.
Skip over that. Skip over that.
There's nothing significant about that. Okay. Well, listen, guys. If we can't figure out the trees in the garden, I mean, we can't even figure out
two things.
We think the Genesis story is about, well, God said don't eat from this tree, and they ate from that tree, so they disobeyed, so therefore sin passed upon all man, and then man's in the fallen condition. Christ went to the cross, he made a way, so now we can go to the good place instead of the bad place. That's it. That's as deep as it gets. Okay?
Skip over that there was only 2 trees mentioned, and there might be some importance in each of them.
Apparently it's not significant. There's no...
Skip right
Listen,
over
guys, I'm telling you right now, if you don't understand the difference between the message from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and the message from the tree of life, if you don't understand the difference between those 2 messages, if you don't understand the difference, we have absolutely no business reading this book and teaching it. You wonder why I can't sit in a church building? I can't sit in the church building because I can't handle listening to somebody teaching out of this book, and they can't rightly divide the difference between the old covenant and the new covenant. My gosh, if you can't do that...
And is that what the 2 trees are? The old covenant and the new covenant?
The tree of the knowledge of good... I mean, think about it. Think about it. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil is law.
Which...
It's law.
Right. Mm-hmm.
The tree of life was grace.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, what does he say about the new covenant? He says, I'm going to bring a new covenant, and I'm going to write my words in the hearts of my people. I was sitting with a pastor, loved the guy. Absolutely loved the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Nicest guy. And he had the Bible, and he says, Dan, this is it. This is it. And I said, I guess I spend more time here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what I'm saying is, I believe in the new covenant, and you believe in the old covenant.
Which this represents the old covenant, and the heart,
so
the
what
words written on the heart is the new covenant.
So what's happening here is you're believing in the written word,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm believing in a living word.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to say that the word is in me,
Mm-hmm.
and it's living, it's just, what do you do with that? I mean, that's a scary thing for them.
Which what you said, it is written in there, and it says,
Yeah,
I'm
I mean-
gonna write my word on the hearts of man. And it's not just on the heart of Dan, it's on the heart of all, it's an all-inclusive, it's written on all of our hearts. Think of it from a computer program standpoint, where the program ran off of law, and there came this glitch in the program, which rewrote it onto each of our hearts. And that's why we can discern what feels right and what doesn't feel right, as far as, is this truthful or not? Like you just said to your friends, after they heard what they heard, and we're sitting in the truck, I don't know, but it's true. Like, our heart has that truth
You just
meter.
know it.
I don't know what I
I
just
mean,
heard,
that's what
but I know it's
salvation
true.
is.
Right.
Salvation is not experience.
Right.
Salvation is a knowing.
Right.
So, I mean, listen, when I tell people that, hey, the message you're listening to from the messenger, it's the same message that Adam and Eve was listening to
Mm-hmm.
in the garden. Well, it's hard on people, you know?
So you're telling me my pastor is the serpent?
Well, I'm telling you that the message that's being taught in church is the same message that was given to Adam and Eve in the garden. And I know, listen, if you don't understand the new covenant and you're sitting in the building, you're not going to hear what I'm going to hear.
Right.
You're going to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
There's other people that I know are going to hear it.
Right.
That's why they can't sit in there anymore. You couldn't. Taking me and saying, hey,
time out. Yeah.
Sunday, you're going to go to church, Dan.
And hear that you're
Listen, that's going to be a hard thing for me.
right, that you're a sinner, that you're doing wrong, you need to do right.
It's just not true. It's not.
Right.
Listen, we are justified, we are reconciled, we are sanctified, and we're perfected.
Flawed,
Whether it looks that way or not, it
flawed
doesn't
and all.
matter.
Right.
You know, that's how he sees us.
Yeah.
The only thing that matters is how he sees us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's believing in God.
Mm-hmm.
Believing in God would be, not believing that would be the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Not believing that I'm justified and reconciled and sanctified and perfected. That would be the opposite of believing in God. See? But we get all caught up in our behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still believing, we're still reading this thing and opening it up, and what are we doing? Trying to find out how we ought to live.
I'll run through those again. Sanctified, justified,
Reconciled,
reconciled,
and perfected.
and perfected. And I'm just picturing this when I look in the mirror, and if the God sees me that way, and if I'm looking in the mirror and can't see myself the way that God sees me, and I can't love myself, how am I supposed to love my neighbor? How am I supposed to love others? If I can't look in the mirror and see myself with those qualities that God sees, there's that old saying that we can't love others any more than we love ourselves. Well, no wonder if we're judging ourselves under the law of what's good and evil, and right and wrong, good and bad, and we can't love ourselves, of course it's going to be hard for us to love our neighbor and or love people that what we interpret aren't loving us. How do we love our enemy if we can't even love ourselves? So that just hit me as you said that. Like, wow, until we can really get what you just shared, and God sees us that way, and if God, if you can see me that way, I can see myself that way. Flawed and all, however I may have judged myself or whatever I've done, God sees me that way. Okay, I'll see myself that way. That opens up to, whoa, now I might be able to love my family. I might be able to love my neighbors. I might be able to love my enemy, which we're told to do, but it begins with opening up to allowing us to see ourselves the way that God sees us. Who are we to override God?
I mean, for us, we're just, listen, all we're doing is going out there and loving on people.
Mm-hmm. Starting with ourselves. Starting with loving ourselves.
So the message in the garden, it's a tough thing because It's like, hey, Dan, well, wait a minute, what do we do with sin? I mean, the bottom line is they disobeyed. Well, we got to understand this book. We got to understand what that is. Okay, we got to understand who Jesus was and what the story was. Okay, this is the manifestation that God gave us. Jesus was a manifestation that God gave us, and that's the story that was told. Okay, so people believe, like when you were in the Marines, you received Jesus. Well, yeah, because we're taught that this is what we're supposed to do in order to receive Jesus.
Yep.
Okay? Well, the truth is that you were saved before the world began.
It's not my choice.
It's just that at that moment you didn't have any recognition of that.
Before the world began,
Right.
it was all
So we experienced something,
Mhm.
and then because we believe in time and space,
Mhm.
that was the moment when you received Jesus. Well, it's the moment that you receive Jesus in our understanding of what we're taught about receiving Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the truth is, God had you, and He
Before
took care of you before the world began.
it was, He had the relationship.
Yeah, and that's
It
what the
doesn't
new
matter.
covenant is.
Right.
Okay.
And that's not Dan and Tom exclusive. This is all inclusive. God created this.
All of man has God in him.
Right. All.
And all man was saved before the world began. And that doesn't go with the narrative.
Yep.
Although it's in there,
Yep.
we just can't teach it.
Mhm.
Okay? But, listen, it's just man not having recognition of God in him.
Mhm.
Okay? But when this body dies, in a twinkling of an eye, they wake up and go, holy crap,
I wish I'd have.
you were always there.
Right.
You were always there.
And it's that knowing. I mean, here we are all these years later. Man, if knowing what I know now, imagine going back to college. Knowing what I know
Yeah.
now, imagine going back to high school. Knowing what I know now.
Right.
Well, knowing what I know and the twinkling of an eye when we pass. Man, I wish I'd known that for a few
Well,
decades.
we're going to find out this thing we walked through that we thought was so important, and we were so convinced. We were just so convinced. We're going to find out this thing is illusion.
Yep. And we'll see.
And so that's just hard for people. I mean, what are you talking about?
Mhm.
You know?
And we can see, and now when I see this, like I look at the choices Jesus was making, right? God, Lord, take this cup away from me. I don't want to drink of it. When he knew, he could see he was going to the cross, and he had that moment of like, I don't know, but he's like, you know what? Your will be done. Thy will be done. God's will be done. And he knew he's going to go to the cross, and there's going to be the physical pain and the torment that he's going to feel, but he sees beyond this body and this experience, and he knew what that would do and how that would bring in the new covenant.
Yeah, he ushered in the new covenant. And he took everything to the cross with him.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. Man, Satan,
Mm-hmm.
that old belief system of this is right and that's wrong.
What is
That independent self-belief system that man believes in.
Mm-hmm.
He took all that to the cross. And it all died.
What was his words? It is finished. It is done. What
He
he
said it is finished.
It's finished.
And
Did he leave a P.S.? Except this. Except it's finished. Except I need your help.
again, it's really about, do we believe him or not?
Right. Did he
Did
come?
he do it or not?
Right.
So, anyway, it's...
And what is that? It is finished. So, like, what were the promises that were finished with Jesus fulfilling what he fulfilled?
Well, he finished that belief system that says there's much work to be done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay? that we, as an independent self, have a work to do. Okay? We, as an independent self, are no longer as gods, knowing right and wrong. What do we know today? Well, it's all good. It's all right.
It's all God.
Yeah, it's all God. Everything. Just because you see something is wrong doesn't mean it's wrong.
Yeah.
Listen, this body's gonna die. We're gonna wake up, and in a twinkling of an eye, we're gonna find out there was never any wrong. What are you talking about? See, that's just foreign to man's belief system. That's just foreign. So, I mean, this is hard. This is a hard thing. And so here we are, we leave the church, and then, you leave the church, and, my gosh, don't listen to that guy.
Right.
Guy's the devil.
Only-
And at the end of the days, end times, and the end times, they're taught the end times. Oh my gosh, the end times.
Revelation in the
It's
future.
the end times.
Instead of Revelation.
Okay. Oh my gosh, look out.
Revelation was talking.
People are going to be out there and they're going to trick us. It's the end times. And obviously, if you look around, it's the end times. Oh my gosh, it's the end times. We're in the end times. Well, holy crap. Christians have been in the end times for 2,000 years. Oh my gosh, can you imagine Christians in Vietnam and the Viet Cong are running through the villages? I think if you ran up to them and said, this isn't the end times, I think you'd have a hard time, convincing those people.
Yeah.
It's been going on for years.
Jesus in his talk said it will happen in your lifetime.
So listen, in the Bible, what happened was the Gentiles just copied the Jews. In everything. And in everything. And even in the end times, they got the same freaking message. The Jewish people, they teach, well, he wasn't the Messiah. That Jesus guy, he wasn't the Messiah because, You see, when the real, true Messiah comes, he's going to show up and he's going to bring peace on earth. And then that's when we'll know, when the world will know that this guy's the Messiah. Okay? Because he's going to bring peace on earth. Well, what does the Gentiles teach? Well, Jesus, he's going to come up in the clouds and he's going to show up in the second coming, and then he's going to show up and he's going to show the world that he's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I was just talking to a guy last week about this, and he was telling me, Dan,
Jesus is coming.
I know the end story. I know the victory. I know that Jesus is going to come in clouds. It's coming soon, Dan. The second coming is going to happen, and here we go. And he's going to show up and show the world he's the King and Lord. And then he's going to take us out, and we're going to get away from all this, and it's all going to work out, Dan. It's all going to work. So the Christians are sitting back waiting for
the second coming.
The second coming.
Which would technically be the third coming.
Which would technically be the third coming.
Because you already had the second coming.
Yeah,
But anyway, so
the second coming.
So they're skipping the one.
Yeah.
Him coming back, that's not counting.
Yeah, well, they really need to go read Matthew.
Right.
Okay. Might want to spend some time there.
He told, verily I say unto you,
Pretty
it will
clear.
happen in
Pretty clear.
your lifetime.
Yeah,
Like,
pretty
it
clear.
happened.
He
And
was
the church,
talking to those
church
people.
ripped apart, right?
He was talking to those people. Why? Because it was going to happen to them.
Right then. And it did.
I mean, what in the world is he talking about that for to people that's going to happen 3,000 years from now?
And it did happen to them.
You know why? Because man, it has to happen to me before it can be. It's just all there is to it. It's just the way we're made. It has to happen to me, and then if it happens to me, then it happened. Okay? it's like we think everything has to happen to America. If it happens to America, then boy, that now it's the tribulation. Now it's the tribulation. Okay. So that's just the way it is. That's the way this was put together.
So this just hit me, like, and here's the great part, like, even though we've talked about this a lot of times, every time you speak it, something settles in a little deeper, and this just hit me, like, so if there's peace on earth when you eat from the tree of life. When you have knowledge of what you're talking about, and you resonate and you hear this, you have peace amidst, like, in essence, heaven on earth exists when you have the tree of life. You're living heaven on earth. But when you have still knowledge of the tree of good and evil, you're going to have hell on earth. It's the same earth.
You're gonna be gnashing your teeth.
It's still the same experience, but you're now, when you have the tree of life, you have peace and rest.
Right, because that knowledge of right and wrong. You're looking at things, okay?
You're seeing 2 plus 2 equals 5 is not right. 2 plus 2 equals right. You see through the illusion.
But when you eat off the tree of life, then you're looking at a world through different lenses. Mm-hmm. You're getting a different view, and so you don't see a world that needs to be changed.
You don't see bad. You see God.
You don't see a world that needs to be fixed. Yeah.
Or you don't see in the mirror yourself as being the sinner.
Listen, we walk in this world. We're in it, but we're not of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you and I don't see what in the world's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's just that, listen,
God.
I understand why it's going on. Mm-hmm. It's going on because man keeps believing in their right and wrong, good versus evil belief system.
That's the operating system.
And listen, if you go talk to I talked to a guy who went to Bible school. My gosh. Anyway, he went to Bible school. And I said to him, you know what would be great? I really wish that you could pick up that Bible and read it and set your right and wrong, good versus evil belief system away. Mm-hmm. He just looked at me like I was crazy.
Yeah. Like you have to judge.
Well, he thinks that you should have listen, they think that we're supposed to have our right and wrong, good versus evil belief system. That God would want us to have our right and wrong, good versus evil belief system.
That God thinks like us.
Yeah, that's where we're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
If I was in charge.
Yeah, you're right, because that's what's going on. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, but that thing's supposed to pass away. That was the thing that was supposed to pass away. And we can't do that. We can't do it. So this can't be heaven. See? Mm-hmm. So that's what you get when listen, what you experienced is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Yeah.
That's what you experience. Well, you never experienced the message from the tree of life. Mm-hmm. You never experienced it. So you know this, but you don't know that. Right. Well, if you don't know something, how can you sit here and tell me I'm crazy? If you don't know something. Yep. Just because you haven't experienced it doesn't mean it's wrong. Mm-hmm. Listen, what I'm saying is once you leave this belief system and you go feed off the message from the tree of life, which is the new covenant, mm-hmm. when you get a hold of that, guess what? Your view of the world, your understanding of who God is,
different lenses, yeah.
Okay? Your understanding of mankind,
it's the
and
same,
yourself,
right.
It all changes.
It's the same, but it's a different perspective. It's a different lens. So yes, the bad things, quote unquote, bad things happen. Of course.
Well,
that's how the operating system.
That's how we view it.
We would put labels of, oh man, this is bad, that's terrible, this is a catastrophe. Personally, to us, our family, our friends, like our own selves, bad things would be labeled. However, we see it as God doing God stuff. Hey, God.
Yeah, I had a buddy of mine, he says, you know, I got a family, I got 3 girls, married, got 3 girls. I'm gonna go start this business. I'm gonna go start this business. And sure enough, man, I just open up. What happens? We get hit with a hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, crap. I gotta get this business up. I'm gonna start making some money, and boom, I get hit with a hurricane, man.
Mm-hmm.
You said, can you imagine that? I get hit with a hurricane, then my car breaks down.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
My car stops running.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then I think it was something
right.
else. I can't remember what he said, but it's something else. And I said to him, I said, you know, God put scenarios together, man.
Mm-hmm.
The whole time you're starting this business, what's happening?
Yeah.
Well, you're just walking through the door he keeps opening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you open up the last door and you start the business. What does he say? Boom, boom, boom. He says, hey, buddy,
How serious are
do
you?
you trust me?
Yeah.
Do you trust me?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was the same God that opened all the doors.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I haven't changed. I was the same God.
Yeah.
Okay, do you trust me?
Do you trust me?
And so what I'm seeing is what we saw was problem after problem after problem.
Mm-hmm.
And what he was doing is saying, no, I want to show you glory after glory after glory.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So our eyesight is lying to us. Okay? And we just keep going right back to the garden and taking another bite off the fruit that we ate from.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what's going on. And so it's counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm.
What we're talking about
Right.
is leaving this belief system that was in Genesis and leaving this message and instead of going and listening to the messenger
Mm-hmm.
that we listen to, we're going here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's form. And that's why when I was talking to this guy, he said, well, Dan, wait a minute. What voice are you listening to?
Mm-hmm.
You see,
Yeah.
why? Well,
And there's one voice, right?
there's
It's all God.
Why?
Right?
Well, because there's an opposite.
The
Dan,
dualism.
don't you understand there's an opposite voice out there?
Dualism.
Yeah. Here we go with the dualism.
Yep.
The learned man with the Bible teaching, got the certificate, And so here we are again. Say we can't, we're scared to death of that.
Well, and stuff happens. I mean, you watching this and us personally, stuff happens. You mentioned your friend who had the business and the hurricane and all this and that. I mean, stuff happens. I mean, whether it's a doctor diagnosing something, whether it's a financial situation, whether it's a relationship situation, it all happens, but it's all God. When we look at it, we try to separate from the labels of judging it as bad or this shouldn't happen,
Right,
that's right. Look, God, I'm not sure where you're going with this, but I trust you. And I look forward to seeing how this unfolds.
Guys, this realm that we live in is not a realm of fairness.
Right. Yep.
It's
That's a
not
great
a realm of fairness.
Yep. Oh, you've been doing good, so we'll.
Okay, it's not a realm of fairness, and it's not a realm where no one's harmed. That's not what this is. That's not what this realm is. Listen, this is God using all of those scenarios, putting all those scenarios together to get our attention so he can tell us one more thing about him. I want to tell you one more thing about me, but the problem is I know where you are. I know the realm you live in. So I got to put this scenario together to get your attention for you to start thinking about me. So I can tell you the next thing that I want you to know about me. And I got to use these manifestations. I got to use these physical outward appearance manifestations for you to know that.
And by the way, I created all of this all the
And
scenarios
listen, I did all of it.
before
I did it all.
it began.
I did it all. Why? Because that opposite, that dualism belief system you believe in, that guy you believe in, well, guess what? He's dead. He died. My son took sin to the pole. And he died. That belief system of the opposite power died. And here we are today, every Sunday, walking in the building. What are we doing? Listen to the messenger. Once again, talking to us about the opposite power.
It's all God.
And we wonder why the world hasn't turned upside down. I don't understand. I've got churches on every corner of America. But there's no power. I don't get it. It might be because there's no power in the message.
The dualism. Not and missing what you just said about how that all died. It went to the cross, right? The real message, the real gift. And this all happened before creation. This isn't about everyone waiting. God's not waiting for you to accept Him. God already made that decision prior to the world being created.
Listen, if the Christian world, which, oh, by the way, just so you know, I'm just going to say it. Listen, 2019 Christian is a Pharisee.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay? 2019 Christian is a Pharisee. Okay? Nothing's changed here. So, listen, if we're walking around believing we're a sinner, just saved by grace, we're a Pharisee. I don't call myself a Christian. So, you know, I believe in God. Was Jesus Christ God? Yeah, He was God. That's who I believe in. So, but listen, I was saved before the world began. I don't believe in the manifestation. I believe in the God that lives within me. That's why He says, the kingdom of God inhabits His people. So the kingdom's in here. Okay, I can't bring anybody to the kingdom.
It's already in.
I mean, all I'm doing here is just bringing this word out and throwing it out there. You and I are just throwing this thing out there.
And we've known, we chat with people that
I've
recognize,
known this for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
I've known people throughout my life
Yeah.
that know this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough. I mean, it's like you said, we're sitting in the it's like we're sitting in the math class and the guy's up there telling everybody 2 + 2 = 5.
Woo! Yeah.
And everybody's
Cheers.
saying,
Woo!
nodding and saying amen.
2 + 2 is 5.
2 + 2 is 5, and I'm going to my death with that.
Yeah.
I'm going to die with that.
Oh,
And we're sitting here going,
You're missing the point. And this isn't, and they're just teaching what they've been taught and what's been taught. So this
It's
is
what they know.
Right. This is not a dig on them. It's just,
listen, and listen. You can't be anywhere other than where you are.
Yep.
I mean, that's what God's doing in our life here.
Yep.
Okay? So,
this is for the
this
seekers
isn't
who
some
just
judgment
recognize
thing.
Right.
I'm not telling you you're going to hell. You don't get this.
Because we know.
Okay, what I'm saying is I'm trying to give you this message to free you up so the power of God can come out of you. And so when you walk around,
You see with a different lens.
you see yourself differently.
You see the
You're
world
not
differently.
beating yourself up when you misbehave or for some reason you think you just misbehaved.
Yeah. and or seeing the bad in the world.
Hey,
the
guys,
world is God. The
listen.
world, it's heaven on earth. To help, well, here's the thing. So you said in the twinkling of an eye when we pass. What do we call that when people die? We say R.I.P., rest in peace. What we're talking about is the tree of life, where you have peace and rest now.
Now.
You can have peace and rest in what others determine as chaos and bad and wrong and evil. It's not, it's God is all. And God doesn't think the way we think. So what we're trying to help you, instead of dying and seeing it in the twinkling of an eye, we're helping you see it now so you can have peace and rest and heaven on earth right now.
Listen, there's nothing happening out there unbeknownst to God. There's nothing happening out there that God didn't do. This is why, you talk to preachers and what they'll say, well, see, Dan, you gotta, God allows things. Man, I wish I had $1 for every time I've heard Christians tell me God allows